to revenge with Lyra.
At dinner, my parents didn't bring wine or dessert. They brought legal documents. Dad slid the folder across the table with a self-satisfied smirk. We've decided your brother will be managing your office business from now on. He'll take a 25% profit. It's only fair. My brother leaned back, already grinning like he owned the place. Mom sipped her drink, eyes darting to me, waiting for the explosion they thought would come. But I didn't explode. I smiled. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 29 years old. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the family, who thinks they're outsmarting you, forgets you've been preparing for this moment all along? I picked up the paper slowly, flipping through the neat paragraphs, the ink still smelling fresh. They had planned this, printed it, rehearsed it. They thought I'd panic, that I'd beg them not to take what I built with my own hands. Dad tapped the table. Well, it's simple. You sign tonight, and starting next quarter, your brother will help with the accounts. You'll thank us later. I held back a laugh. Accounts? My brother had never balanced a checkbook in his life. Instead of arguing, I reached down, opened my briefcase, and slid out a folder of my own. Inside was the contract they had clearly forgotten existed, the one they signed years ago when I first took over the business. I flipped straight to the page I'd marked. Clause 4.3, I said calmly, sliding it across to Dad. He read it once. His face drained of color. Because Clause 4.3 was clear, any attempt to reassign management without my consent voided their stake entirely. I leaned back, smiling. Looks like dinner's on me. The silence around the table stretched thin, broken only by the faint clatter of Dad's fork against his plate. His eyes scanned the clause again and again, as if the words might magically rearrange themselves. Mom leaned forward, her voice tight. Rachel, what is this supposed to mean? You're twisting things. This isn't what we agreed. I stayed calm. No, this is exactly what we agreed. Clause 4.3 clearly states that any attempt to reassign control without my written approval cancels all profit shares tied to family partners. Which means, Dad, that by trying to hand my business to your golden boy, you've just signed away your own rights. My brother's smirk vanished. That's ridiculous. Dad, tell her she can't do this. Dad's face was pale now, sweat gathering at his temples. He knew the truth. He was the one who had pushed me to draft that clause years ago when he thought it would protect him. He never imagined it would shield me instead. I leaned back, savoring the shift in the air. You wanted 25% for him? Now you get 0. You wanted control of my accounts? Now you've lost your own. Mom's voice cracked. Rachel, we're family. You can't just cut us out like this. I tilted my head. Funny. I thought family was supposed to support me, not ambush me with contracts at dinner. My brother slammed his fist against the table. You'll regret this. I smiled. No. For the first time in years, I won't. The papers between us were more than ink and signatures. They were proof that I wasn't the servant at their table anymore. I was the one who owned it. Dad's hands shook as he shoved the papers back into the folder, his jaw locked tight. This is a mistake. You don't understand the consequences, Rachel. If you go through with this, you'll embarrass all of us. I let out a short laugh. Embarrass you? You brought contracts to a family dinner and expected me to sign away my work like it was a hand-me-down sweater. You embarrassed yourselves. Mom leaned across the table, lowering her voice as if the walls might be listening. Listen to me. You're young. You don't know how to run a business properly. Your brother has contacts. He'll take it to the next level. I met her eyes coldly. Then why was I the one who doubled profits last year? Why was I the one paying off debts you two racked up before I even took over? Her lips pressed tight, but she had no answer. My brother leaned forward, his voice sharp. You're making a huge mistake. Do you know what people will say when they find out you cut your own family out? I smiled, slow and deliberate. They'll say I finally stopped letting you use me. And then I stood, pulling my phone from my bag. With a single tap, I opened the email I had drafted weeks ago, the one with receipts, financial statements, and proof of every transfer I had made to cover their bills while they claimed credit. All queued up, ready to send. I slid the phone onto the table, screen glowing. Clause 4.3 is just the beginning. Try me again, and this goes out to every investor, every partner, every relative. And trust me, they'll believe the numbers more than your stories. Dad's face drained completely. The balance had shifted, and they knew it. The air around the table was thick with panic. Dad's knuckles whitened as he clutched the folder. You wouldn't dare send that email. It would destroy us. I raised an eyebrow. Destroy you, maybe. But me? It would only prove what I've carried all along. Your debts, your failures, your lies. My reputation would only get stronger. Mom reached for my wrist, her voice breaking. Rachel, stop this. You're our daughter. Families fight, but they don't burn each other down. I pull my arm back. Families also don't show up with ambush contracts at dinner. You didn't come here to talk. You came to steal. My brother scoffed, trying to recover some bravado. You think you've won just because of one clause? You don't get it. People respect Dad. They'll never believe you. I leaned forward, meeting his glare with a calm that made him flinch. You mean the same people who've already seen me expand the office, land clients you couldn't even spell, and pay off the loans Dad left behind? They don't need to believe me. They already do. Dad's jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. For once, he wasn't the man in control, he was cornered. I tapped the phone still glowing on the table. Clause 4.3 erased your claim. This email erases your credibility. Both of them are ready whenever I decide. Silence. Heavy, suffocating, undeniable silence. Finally, Dad muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you want? I sat back, folded my arms, and let the question hang. For years, I'd been the one asking for scraps of respect. Now, the power was mine, and I intended to use it. I let his question linger in the air. What do you want? For years, I'd wanted nothing more than recognition, a seat at the table as their equal. But now, watching them squirm, I realized the truth. I didn't need their recognition anymore. I had outgrown it. Still, I leaned forward slowly, letting them sweat. What I want, I said carefully, is for you to understand that I'm not the servant of this family. I'm not your safety net, and I'm not your scapegoat. The business is mine. Every contract signed, every client earned, every cent reinvested, it's mine. And from this day forward, it stays that way. Dad's face twitched, but he didn't interrupt. Mom's hands trembled as she set her glass down. My brother looked like he'd swallowed something sour. I continued, my tone sharper now. You've lived off my work long enough. No more family emergencies I'm expected to pay for. No more secret deals to line his pockets. I nodded toward my brother. And no more treating me like a pawn in your power games. My brother muttered, You can't just cut us out. I smiled faintly. I already have. Their silence told me they knew I wasn't bluffing. They had walked into dinner believing I was weak, compliant, easy to manipulate. Instead, I'd placed them in checkmate without even raising my voice. I slid my briefcase shut and stood. Clause 4.3 protected me. Now, I protect myself. If you want to rebuild trust, you start by earning it like everyone else. And with that, I left them at the table, staring at the contract they thought would control me, but had instead exposed them. For once, it wasn't me who left empty-handed. The fallout didn't take long. Within days, word began to ripple through the extended family. A cousin messaged me, Rachel, your dad looked furious at brunch. He tried to brag about the office again, but someone asked why your name is on all the contracts. He had no answer. I smiled at the screen. For years, Dad had puffed up his chest with my accomplishments. Now the truth was leaking through every crack he'd tried to plaster over. Meanwhile, Mom tried damage control. She called one night, her voice soft, almost pleading. Rachel, don't do this. Don't let this break the family apart. Your father's pride was misguided, but he only wanted what's best. I held the phone to my ear, letting her words float in the silence. Then I answered simply. If he wanted what was best, he wouldn't have ambushed me with contracts. He would have trusted me. She sighed. You've changed. No, I corrected. I've grown. The very next morning, an email arrived from one of our biggest investors. Subject line, meeting request, congratulations. Inside was a simple message. Heard about the transition. Glad the business is fully in your hands. Let's talk future growth. That was the moment I knew the shift was permanent. I wasn't just surviving their betrayal, I was thriving because of it. When I walked into the office that week, the staff greeted me differently. Firmer handshakes, warmer smiles. No longer the daughter propped up by her father, but the leader who held the keys herself. And back at home, the same dining table where they once plotted my downfall was now their prison of silence. Because the more they tried to claw back control, the more the world saw what they really were. By February, their silence had turned into desperation. Dad showed up at my office without an appointment, his suit wrinkled, his face pale. He barged past the receptionist like he still had authority here. Rachel, we need to talk. Privately. I didn't flinch. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my staff. His jaw tightened. You've made me look weak. Everyone's talking. Your uncle, your cousins, even investors, they think I've lost control of my own daughter. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. You didn't lose control of your daughter. You never had it. You had fear. You had intimidation. That's gone now. His voice cracked as he slammed a folder onto my desk. Do you want to destroy this family? Is that what you want? I opened the folder. Empty threats, outdated contracts, nothing with legal teeth. Desperation in paper form. I slid it back to him. This family destroyed itself the moment it tried to cut me out of what I built. Behind him, my staff stood straighter, watching the man who once barked orders reduced to pleading. Dad's face crumpled. Rachel, please don't do this. We need you. I rose from my chair, my tone steady. You don't need me. You need what I built. And that's the difference. His silence was answer enough. He turned, shoulders sagging, and left without another word. The moment the door clicked shut, my team erupted into quiet applause, not out of mockery, but respect. For the first time, the empire wasn't his. It was mine. Spring arrived, and with it came the final clarity. The dining table where they once ambushed me with contracts was now gathering dust. No more signatures, no more games. Only silence. The investors who once shook my father's hand now called me directly. My brother's future manager fantasy evaporated overnight, leaving him scrambling to explain why the business thrived without him. At Easter, relatives gathered, but this time the spotlight had shifted. Grandma pulled me aside, squeezing my hand. Rachel, you saved what they nearly ruined. Don't ever let them take that from you. I nodded, feeling the truth settle deep. For years, I had fought for a seat at their table, begging for recognition. But the real power wasn't in being invited. It was in building my own. That week, I hosted my first investor dinner at a sleek downtown restaurant. Contracts signed under my name, strategies pitched by my voice, respect given without hesitation. The same relatives who once whispered about my father now whispered about me. But this time, it was admiration, not pity. Back home, Dad tried one final olive branch. A short text, Clause 4.3, you outsmarted me. Maybe you were always meant to lead. I read it once, then set my phone down. No reply. Because I didn't need his validation anymore. The sweetest revenge wasn't in humiliating them. It wasn't even in the silence that followed. It was in watching them realize I no longer belonged to their control. They thought they could bind me with contracts.